Hello friends, how's it going? It's me, Betty Jean. In today's video, I wanted to do a little video where I chat about various brands in my collection, and if I could only keep one eyeshadow palette from that brand, what would it be? I've done this kind of video in the past, and I recently saw my friend Rachel do this video on her channel, so it kind of re-inspired me to bring it back and do it again. It's been a while. I'll of course have Rachel's channel down below. Please go check her out. She's so wonderful. And if you end up liking this video, I'll do the flip side of it where I have to talk about what would I declutter from each brand if I had to declutter a palette. And that's gonna be extra hard because I did do my declutter at the end of last year. So pretty much everything I have are things that I love dearly. So that'll be difficult, but I'm down to do it if you want to see it. Before we hop into the video itself, I did of course film this look. It's from my members only video from the month. So if you want to see this look and all of the others that are part of the membership, you can join. There's a link in the description to join my channel membership. And as far as my accessories today go, these earrings are Spooky Doodle Club, and I think this necklace is from Shop Sun & Co, but it's incredibly old, so I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyways, without further ado, let's hop in and chat about all these palettes and brands and things that I would keep if I could only keep one palette from each brand. Oh, this was so tough. I ended up deciding to only use palettes from brands that I have at least 5 of from each brand. I just feel like it's more of a challenge for me if I have at least 5, because if there's less, there's obviously less options. And I wanted to make it a little harder on myself. So I have 20 palettes here next to me, 20 different brands, and oh, this was so hard. Some of these brands were really, really tough, but I'm pretty happy with my decision. Now, in some cases, it might be my ultimate favorite palette from the brand, and that's why I ended up picking it. I just can't live without it. But in some cases, it was more strategic, like ones that I feel like I'm just genuinely gonna use more, or it has more variety than maybe what my favorite one would be. There's various reasons, and I'll try to touch on all of them. I also have done videos with each and every one of these palettes. You can check like my YouTube channel, you can check Instagram and TikTok. I have done at least one look, usually multiple looks with all of these. So if you want to see these in action and see how they perform and stuff like that, go check out those individual videos. Without further ado, we're just gonna hop into it. These are in no particular order other than I just stacked them fairly smallest to biggest so they wouldn't fall over. First being Game Beauty. I wasn't sure what I was gonna pick. I was like, do I pick one of the fun, cool, adventure-y ones, or do I pick one of the monochromatic ones? Do I pick one of the Persona ones? And I ended up deciding the Dendro palette is probably the one that I would enjoy having the most. I like that we have different textures in here. We have a multi-chrome and duochromes in here. We have lots of different mattes. I feel like this matte formula is really, really nice as well. And I like the fact that even though this is a monochromatic green palette, we have different undertones. Honestly, similar to my look, like I have different shades of green. Like I have more of a blue toned green in like the crease. I have like a very yellowy green in the inner corner, and then like more of a green on the lid. I didn't realize that. I'm very much channeling this palette with this look, even though I did not use this palette in the slightest. But there's things I really, really like about this palette, but especially with the shimmers on this palette being as good as they are, this ended up being my pick. Moving on to Fantasy Cosmetica, I don't think this one will be a surprise. I ended up having to opt for my favorite palette from the brand, and that's the Druid palette. I just can't live without it. This was their first palette they ever launched, and it remains undefeated. They've come out with so many beautiful launches since their first launch. But this one really just remains my favorite. I love the grungy tones in here. I love the shimmers. I love the sparkle. I love everything about this. It makes me so happy. And even though I feel like the brand has like truly just gotten better and better and better, this is still just overall my favorite palette, my favorite color story they've ever done. It's one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection, so I knew this one would have to be the pick. Next up is Shroud Cosmetics, and I do want to just take a moment to chat a little bit about Shroud. I've gotten messages and comments here and there over the last few months, and I always respond to all the ones that I personally see if I get messages or comments. I personally don't have any idea what's going on with Shroud. It breaks my heart. I do not know why she disappeared. I don't know what's going on with the brand. I don't know what's going on with her. I've done everything I can possibly do. I've reached out to her so many times. I still every so often still send her texts just to try to reach out and see what's going on with her. I've reached out to the one mutual friend that I know we both have, but neither her or me live in her vicinity. I don't know enough personal information about her to do anything else beyond that, but just know that I also have no idea what's going on with Shroud, and it really breaks my heart. I really, truly hope everything is okay with her, but I have no idea. And I'm very sorry for anyone who placed an order that has since gone unfulfilled. I think it was back in November when she restocked her website and people made orders and then she kind of disappeared. I'm really sorry that that's happened. I wish I had information, but I have no information. It breaks my heart, and I just truly hope everything's okay. But for the sake of the video, aside from my own collabs with the brand, the palette that I would keep is the Moonfall. This one's just so cute. It's my favorite one, besides my collabs, obviously. We have a beautiful combination of just these rich jewel tones. I love the shimmer formula that's in here. I love the mattes. These are so incredibly gorgeous, and I love them so incredibly much. And I think that's the one I'd be the happiest with, if I could only keep one, excluding my own personal collabs. Moving on to Kaleidos. The one that I would keep, if I could only keep one, would definitely be Flower Punk. Like, this wasn't even a question. This is still what I deem to be their best palette. It's just so pretty. Pretty sure it got discontinued. In typical Kaleidos fashion, I feel like they get rid of all of my favorite things, but this one's my favorite. I just think it's so cool. It's so versatile. The shimmers are so twinkly and special, and I just love the combination of the bright springy tones with the grungified tones. It is such a cool palette, and I love it so much. This is absolutely the one that I would keep, and this packaging is just so cool. So incredibly beautiful. Moving on to Gourmet Girls. This was also a very easy one. I didn't have to think too long at all, but I'm gonna give it to the Spooked palette. This was in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny, and this is just so pretty, so incredibly gorgeous. I just love the Halloween vibes, you know me. Halloween all year long. It's just my favorite. And I love these tones. The shimmers are incredible. The mattes are so cool. This palette brings me so much joy. I love it with my entire soul. Moving on to Melt Cosmetics, I was not exactly sure what I was gonna do because my favorite palette from the brand is the Muerte. I have so much joy from the Christmas Town and Halloween Town palettes, but I ultimately ended up deciding to go with the Gemini. This is a tried and true classic. This is still one of my top favorite palettes in my whole collection. And I just feel like if I could only keep one palette from a brand, this is the one to keep. It's just so good. It's that grungy neutral vibe, neutrals with a twist. The black is so good. This is just such a staple palette. I've used this for years. It's one of my go-tos. I played with this in like a throwback get ready with me video this year. It just always brings me joy, and I love this one. It's the palette that started it all for me, my first Melt Cosmetics palette, and I cherish it so deeply. Moving on to Lethal Cosmetics. This is one that I didn't know what to pick, and like, not even because there were, well, let me rephrase. I was gonna say not because there weren't good options, because there are great options from Lethal, so many. But it wasn't even that I was really deciding like which one was my favorite or anything. I was just really trying to decide which one do I genuinely think I would get the most use out of. And I think arguably this one is one of my top favorites. It might be my top favorite, but I do also think that it's one that I would get the most use out of from the brand. But it's the Evergreen palette. I just still think this was such a cool palette. I mean, you guys know me. I love blues and greens. I love the pop of yellow. I love the pop of that bright purple. The shimmers in here are so incredibly beautiful. And I almost picked the Wildflower. I almost picked the Nightflower, but this one ended up winning for me. I just love the depth and the brightness and the blues and the greens. It's giving everything to me. This is my pick from Lethal. Moving on to Odin's Eye. And again, I do have a collab with the brand, so excluding that collab, the palette that I decided that I would keep, if I could only keep one, I ended up going with Stone and Rock. This is just such a cool palette. I love it. It's, again, kind of like grungy green neutrals with a twist, Swamp Queen energy. I feel like we have a theme going on. I'm just now realizing most of the palettes I've picked so far are in this like swampy green realm. And I don't think that changes much in this video. I have a type, what can I say? I love a grungy green, but this one is just so cool. I feel like not only do I just get a really cool variety with the colors in here, like again, we have some pops of bright with that like yellowy shade and even the green shimmer, but we also have lots of like depth and grungy vibes, and the shimmers in here are so cool. They are so reflective and metallic and just so amazing. And this is one of my top palettes from the brand. I think it's so cool. I did almost pick the Christmas Eve, and I'm still debating picking that one, but I ended up going with this one just because I feel like they both have similar grungy vibes, even though it's totally different color stories. And I do like the shimmers in this one more than the Christmas Eve. So that's how I landed here. Moving on to Nomad Cosmetics. I could have gone so many directions with this one. I almost went for one of the Halloween palettes they've done. I almost went for the Hudson Valley Fall Vibes one, but ultimately the one that I just feel like would fill me with the most sadness is my #1 favorite from the brand. This is the Iceland palette, the Fire and Ice, and I believe this one is getting discontinued. I don't know if it's still available by the time this video goes up. I'll have everything I talked about today linked down below if I can. So if it's still available, it'll be discounted, and I know you can stack my affiliate code battybean on top of that. So if you're at all interested in this palette and it's still available, now's the time because it's literally getting discontinued. But this is amazing. I'm honestly so sad they're getting rid of it because it's so good. I love the mixture of the warmth and the cool tones. The shimmers in here are so good. Like, this one has really stood the test of time because this has been a favorite of mine for years now. I think the different colors are just so fun. I would be really sad to not have this palette in my collection. So this is the one I ultimately decided to go with. I feel like there's a really good variety in here. I have lots of brightness. It's just such a fun time. Next up, Bella Beauty Bar. Again, I had kind of a hard time with this one because I love so many things from Bella Beauty Bar. Oh, there's so many options I could have gone with, but with this one too, I ultimately ended up going with what I think is my #1 favorite from the brand, Basic Witch. I just don't think I can go without it. It's just so cool. I love these colors. They're so incredibly beautiful. These are stunning. And I always say, if you missed out on the original Lunar Beauty Moonspell, this is the one to go for. I think it's so cool, so fun. Oh, it's just beautiful. The shimmers are incredible. I love these colors. We have such weird, funky pops of color in here. It's such a cool one, especially if you like a spooky vibe like I do. This is a great one. Next up from Ensley Rain, I didn't have to think about this for more than 2 seconds. It's the Harvest Moon. Of course it's the Harvest Moon. I love these vibes. I love the fall tones. I love all the shimmers that are in here. I love the grungy, dark mattes at the bottom. I just think this palette is so cool. I love this palette. I brought it with me to Colorado back in October. I've used it quite a few times. I just think it's beautiful. The shimmers are amazing. And just this overall color story is so fall. It's so autumnal and grungy and amazing. I just love everything about it. Moving on to Unearthly Cosmetics. Again, I didn't have to think about this long at all. I ended up going with my favorite from the brand, Sorcerer's Smoke. So pretty. Again, we have kind of those grungy green neutrals with a twist situation. This formula is amazing. They have been stepping it up their last few launches. The mattes are so pigmented and buttery, and these shimmers are so just shifty and metallic and smooth on the lid. They are so show-stopping. The little sparkles that are in them, it's gorgeous. I love this palette. I've used it quite a few times, and it's just so beautiful. Like, this is a no-brainer. This is the one that I would have to keep if I could only keep one. Moving on to Give Me Glow. This one I changed my mind a few times. Like, my first instinct was Bad Witch Club, I think is what it's called, because that's my favorite one. But then I was like, but no, the Vintage Rose. I've used this palette so many times. It's probably one of the most used in my collection. Part of that being because it's one of the older palettes in my collection. But I've gotten so much use out of it, and I have so much love for it. And I think this would be a great one to have kicking around if I could only have one palette from this brand. I just feel like the metallics are so vibrant and so shiny. I love the combination of the pinkies with the greens. I think it's a really cool just combination. I love that I can use these 2 pinks as blushes. It's just such a fun, versatile palette for me. I've gotten so much love with it out of the years, and I would love to continue doing so. So if I could only pick one, this is the one I landed on. It just makes me really happy. And even though, like, overall color story-wise, the Bad Witch Club is my favorite, Vintage Rose is up there. It's a really fun one. Moving on to Lunar Beauty. I did not know what to pick for this one, if I'm being honest with you. I only have 5 palettes from the brand, and my first instinct was the Moonspell, which I'm still half wanting to use Moonspell as my pick, just because not only is that color story so fun, again, it's very reminiscent to the Basic Witch from Bella Beauty Bar, but the packaging is just so cool. And I've always said, even if I decide I hate the insides, I would keep it for a decoration. But I tried to step out a little bit. I said, okay, thinking logically here, I'm only having 20 palettes total in this fantasy universe where I'm only keeping one of each brand. So I only have these 20 palettes total. So I was like, what do I love from the brand that would also give me some variety that I don't have from the other palettes? So I ended up picking the Siren Sunset, actually. I think this one came out really nice. I think they did a great job with it. And it's a really great kind of cool toned, half neutral, half colorful. I don't have a lot of neutrals in the mix that I've been talking about. I mean, I have those grungy neutrals with a twist that are very green, but I don't have anything like this selected so far. And I really like the pops of color in here. The duochromes that are in this palette are beautiful. Overall, this was a really well done palette. And I feel like some of the things that are in here give me some variety amidst all these other palettes. So that's how I landed on this one. Again, it's not necessarily like my #1 favorite. The Moonspell palettes are, just because they're spooky and amazing. But this is a really great palette. And again, it offers me something a little different. Moving on to cosmic brushes, again, no brainer, had to go with the Muse. It's my favorite palette from the brand. It was my first palette from the brand too, as well. And it's just gorgeous. I love these colors. I love these grungy tones. I think these are so beautiful. I'm so happy with this. I think the mattes perform so beautifully. I think this was my top palette last year. It was definitely in my top 3. I fell so in love with this palette. I'm using it to help with this look today, actually. The shimmers are amazing. This is just such a fun brand. I'm so glad I discovered them last year, but this would absolutely be my pick. No questions asked. Ace Beauté. This was another one. I was like, what do I pick? What do I pick? I could go so many directions. They have so many vastly different color stories, but ultimately went with my favorite, Tropical Vibes. Again, kind of that swampy green situation, but I feel like what makes this one extra special is we have really vibrant pops of neon. Like we have these neon-y yellowy greens. I love the teals that are in here. This is just such a fun swampy green palette, and if I could only keep one from the brand, it has to be this one. It just has to be. Moving on to ColourPop, when I went down to my ColourPop shelf, I just immediately grabbed my Twilight palette. I didn't even think about it. It's just so pretty. I love this color story. I know this palette was divided for people, but I loved it. This is what I would have wanted a Twilight palette to be. It captured that blue-green filter that encapsulates the first movie. I know people were mad about a red, but the first movie doesn't have a whole lot of red, and I stand by that. Because this is based on the movie, not the book. Obviously, the book has the apple on the cover, but this is based on the movie. I feel like it captured the movie pretty darn well. But even movie aside, like I'm a big Twilight fan, but I just love this color story. Again, you know me in greens. I love a blue-green thing. I love how cool tone this is. I love the sparkles and shimmers that are in here. This is a cutie. This is a cutie, and I'm holding out hope for collections for all of the movies at some point. Not rushed. I don't want it to be rushed, but I would love for that to be a thing eventually. I think that'd be so cool. Moving on to Wicked Widow Beauty. I love my Wicked Widow Beauty palettes. Like I have a rainbowy one. There's all the small like little 8-pan themed ones, but I ultimately ended up going with the Scissorhands 2. This is the first palette I ever tried from the brand, and I really like it. I feel like it's a really good representation of the brand. I think the shimmers in here are really good, and the mattes are so lovely to work with. They're buttery and blendable, and I just think this color story is really cool. Again, we have kind of those muted grungy tones. We have a blue-green situation. I really like that we have the pops of pink and purple. I love the burgundy. It's a really pretty color story, and I've really enjoyed this one. So this would be my pick if I could only keep one. Also, I realized I miscounted. I thought I had 20 palettes. I have 19 palettes to talk about, but we are finishing off this video with Blend Bunny. I did not know what to pick for this. I love Blend Bunny with my whole heart, my whole soul, my whole being. Her 2 neutral leaning palettes are stunning, so beautiful. The Lure palette is just the most beautiful mermaidy siren kind of energy. The Surge is still one of my top favorites. I love the neons with the depth. We have, of course, the classic blends and primal, just like classic rainbow palettes. We have the pastel one. We have the sugar and grunge. But I ended up deciding to go with the Mahina palette. Machina, I don't know how it was intended to be pronounced. But I ended up going with the Robot palette. That's what I call this one. I just think this one's really cool. And if I could only keep one palette from the brand, I think this one's a really cool representation. It gives us a fun, unique color story. We still have the gradient order. We have beautiful shimmers because these are really pretty, sparkly, lovely shimmers to work with. And I just love this color story. I love seeing like the peach and purple together. I love the swampy greens and peaches next to each other. I love the blues and the pinks. It's just a really cool palette. It's unique. It's interesting. I feel like it offers so many cool things that Blend Bunny does. And it's all wrapped up in this cute little box. And I feel like this would be my pick if I could only keep one. And again, that's not even to say that that's my #1 favorite, because I think Surge remains my favorite, but that is one of my tops. It's a really good one. So I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. That was my video chatting about if I could only keep one palette from each brand, which would I pick and why? I hope this video was fun. I hope it made sense. I hope my reasonings were portrayed correctly. Again, it's a mixture. Some of these are just my top favorite palette that I have to keep around. Some were more of a strategic decision of like, maybe it's not my #1 favorite color story-wise, but I get good variety, or I get a good mixture of formulas, or it makes sense amidst all the other palettes. I'm definitely swampy green leaning. That's never gonna change. But I think I have a good lineup of palettes here. And I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have a YouTube channel, feel free to do this YouTube video as well. Or if you just feel like it, give your picks in the comments down below. Pick some brands or all the brands you have in your collection and leave your picks of what you would keep if you could only keep one. And again, let me know if you want me to do the flip side of this. Which palette would I declutter? If I had to declutter one palette from each brand right now, in this moment, when I very recently did a declutter, so I love everything. It's gonna be very difficult, but I'm down to do it. If you made it to the end of this video, if you could only use 5 emojis for the rest of your life, what would they be? Leave them down below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot. And if you're not already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm battybean there as well. You can also subscribe. I'm posting most days over here. You can also join my channel memberships. The link to sign up will be down below. You'll get fun little perks, including a members only video once a month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye.